Good morning, everybody. All right, thank you so much for being here. I'd like to open our event with a word of prayer. Father God, we thank you so much, Lord, for the hearts of these patriots, these Americans that you brought us all together. We thank you for a country of liberty and freedom and the ability to protect, defend, and expand that liberty and freedom. Lord, we pray right now for Governor DeSantis and all here that your spirit will beat upon us, Lord, and that you fill us with your wisdom, and that, Lord, you guide the path of this campaign forward. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen. At this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have State Representative Bustos come forward and do the pledge.
If everyone would stand, face the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you please be seated. I'm Joe Bustos, and I'm a retired Army officer above all else. And national defense is of the utmost importance to me. My last assignment was as Chief of Personnel Plans and Operations at Headquarters FORCECOM in Atlanta, Georgia. Joe Biden has recently called up a number of reservists to active duty, and we have to worry that we don't have proper people to man our armed forces. This is critically dangerous. We're already depleting our weapon stocks of weapons and ammunition to support the war in Ukraine, and we have a powerful rising adversary in the Chinese Communist Party to deter. A recruitment crisis is the last thing that we will need. I can tell you it's no wonder why we have this crisis. The military under Joe Biden focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion rather than war-fighting capabilities. Americans who might be inclined to join a laser-focused military aren't going to want to stand up and be lectured on gender pronouns and unconscious bias. This is going to take a leader who can inspire Americans to join our military, and Governor DeSantis is a great leader, communicator, and a veteran himself, which I feel is of the utmost importance. As president, he will not only fix the problems of our military, but he will also be able to persuade young Americans that military experience is invaluable. And with the plan he's putting out today, I have no doubt that he's the man to turn things around. So with that, I would like to introduce Mr. Ben Kinlaw, who will speak on some other things.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. You doing good today? Great to see you on this very nice day. I joined the Air Force out of high school in 1968, March 22nd. My stepfather had served in the Air Force, and my brother had joined the Air Force age 17, celebrated his 18th birthday during basic training at Lackland Air Force Base. So for those of you who have been Air Force, how many Air Force we have in here? Aim high. To say we need a veteran in the White House is just, that's putting it very bluntly. Let's take a look at Governor DeSantis. He's a blue-collar kid from Florida who worked to pay his way through college, volunteered in the Navy, and earned a commission in the U.S. Navy as a JAG officer. During his active duty service, Governor DeSantis supported SEAL Team 1 in Fallujah, Ramadi, and the rest of Al-Anbar province during the Iraq War. His military decorations include the Bronze Star Medal for meritorious service and the Iraq Campaign Medal. Of all the candidates for the Republican nomination, Governor DeSantis is the only one with any military service to speak of. He's also done an incredible job as governor of Florida. He's shown the entire country what an energetic executive can get done. He supported law enforcement and our veterans, saved livelihoods from job-killing lockdown and vaccine mandates. He supported law enforcement and our veterans, saved livelihoods from job-killing lockdowns and vaccine mandates, defended parents' rights, protected the unborn, and defended the Second Amendment. The military has a ton of problems that need fixing. Governor DeSantis is the man who can do it. He's proved his competence as an executive in Florida, and because he served, he understands the problems in a concrete way. It's been a long time since we've had a veteran in the White House, and it's time that changed. A commander-in-chief should understand what he's asking of his troops and what military service means, and looking at his plan today, he's clearly the choice. I'd like to turn it back over to Representative Fontenot, who is from my native state in Wilson, North Carolina. We had a good conversation. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I just want to say thank you so much for being here. I really believe in things like this. And I think back on your life, my life, and I think we all have times that really serve as seminal markers of when life became real for us. For me, that was when I was a senior in high school. I just so happened to be out of class for about an hour or two. I went to my friend's house before I would return to class, and when I walked out of his bathroom, he said, "Hey, did you just see a plane crash into the World Trade Center?" And I said, "Man, that's crazy." And then before you knew it, he said, "A second plane just crashed into the World Trade Center." That day when I became alive as an American was September 11th, 2001. And there was one thing I knew without a doubt. It was that I wanted to serve in the world's greatest military. The United States military, without a doubt, is the world's most lethal and effective force we've seen, in my opinion, in history. There are two things that make our military so great. As a matter of fact, the first thing that makes it great is what it does in ways that, one, our government hasn't done, our colleges do not do, our churches do not do, and our businesses do not do. What is that? Our military takes African Americans, Italian Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, and by the time they leave boot camp, we all become Americans. I know this to be true because without a doubt, when I went into combat with my brothers and sisters in Afghanistan, we were ready to bleed for each other. We were ready to die for each other. And where we came from was irregardless because we were there to defend our flag. The second thing that our military does that makes it the greatest fighting force is our system of merit. One thing served true when I was in the Marine Corps, and that was this. Whenever someone was promoted, you knew they were put there because of what they can do, not because of who they were. For instance, I was able to enjoy 8 promotions in 8 years, from private to captain. Why? Because our Marine Corps, our military cares, are you going to lead the troops? Are you going to lead by example? And are you going to merit the position that you're in? And I could say that system is a wonderful system. Unfortunately, we're taking steps back when it comes to that. And I don't know why I'm surprised. If you look at it historically, the last time our military took a step back, we also had a Democratic president. That president was Woodrow Wilson, who was the first president to segregate the military and use race to divide us. And now it's happening again. where we are taking the only machine we have in our nation that brings us and unites us in a way that no other machine can, and now we have the executive office politicizing the most incredible military in the world. And what's the result? Down recruitment, ineffectiveness, lives being lost in Afghanistan due to hasty planning. Now, while this is bad news for me, I am optimistic about our future. I am optimistic because I know we have a candidate in Governor DeSantis who from day one will right the course of this ship so that our military returns to an institution that supports and defends the Constitution and is not a place of indoctrination. We cannot stand the price of wokenomics. And I am confident, ladies and gentlemen, absolutely confident, that Governor DeSantis will do the job, will return us to the world's #1 fighting force, and will prepare us for the things we cannot see that lie ahead in our future. Thank you so much. At this point in time, I'd just like you all to stand and please give a round for Governor DeSantis.
Thanks so much. Thank you all. Thank you for coming. Please have a seat. We're excited that you're all here. I want to thank Representative Bustos and Fontenot, as well as Councilman Kinlaw. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for participating. And thanks everybody else for coming. You know, it's been said that a veteran is somebody who at one time in their life has written a check payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including that individual's life. When you sign up and you raise your hand, you don't necessarily know where you're going to be sent. You don't necessarily know where duty is going to take you, but you stand ready to serve, and you are required to sacrifice. This country would not be what it is if we had not had generations of Americans who were willing to risk their lives and indeed give the last full measure of devotion for service to our great country. So I want to thank everybody here who's a veteran, and I want to thank all of our veterans all throughout this country for their service in conflicts that we have had over many, many years. God bless you all, and thank you. And it's not just something that we say on Veterans Day. It's not just Memorial Day where we recognize the fallen. We would not have a free society unless we had people that were willing to put on that uniform and take a stand. Our founding fathers designed a great Constitution. They drafted a great Declaration of Independence, but they understood none of that works on autopilot. It requires people who are willing to give more and indeed to give all. And through the years, from Bunker Hill to Gettysburg to Belleau Wood to Iwo Jima, all the way to recent conflicts in places like Fallujah and Ramadi, we've had people that have served with honor, with integrity, and have represented the best that the United States has to offer. I had to make a choice with my life, over 20 years ago, about the direction I was going to take. I'd always respected the military. My grandfather served in World War II, was something I was proud of. And, but I was a kid coming up in the 90s, and, we didn't really have much of care in the world at that time as a country. We were doing well economically. The Cold War had ended, thanks to people like President Reagan, and we were kind of on a holiday from history. So I had different things. I was a baseball player. I was interested in doing that, in that industry, if not as a player, continuing along. And I had other things that I wanted to do. I was a blue-collar kid. I had worked minimum wage jobs for most of my life to get through school. Had an opportunity to maybe start making some money as well. So I had all those things circulating, and then September 11th really changed the course of this country, and it changed my trajectory. And so we have an all-volunteer force. We don't have a draft, but I felt that I should raise my hand and do my part. And so we did that. raised our hand. We served in different places, stateside, places like Gitmo, and then attached to Navy SEAL Team 1, serving a deployment in Iraq, and places like Fallujah and Ramadi in Al Anbar province. And the thing about the military that I always appreciated is you bring together people from a very interesting and diverse country. You can have someone from New England training alongside someone from Oklahoma. And what happens is you have people from all walks of life. You go through the same cauldron, and you come out Americans. You come out fellow Marines. You come out fellow soldiers, fellow sailors. And there's a unity that goes into that when you have that American flag on your shirt, on your uniform, that's really, really meaningful. And I think that military ethos, commitment to service, that transcends any differences that we bring to the table, whether ethnic, religious, whatnot. We're all pulling in the same way. And I think that was the ethos that I remembered in the military. I think clearly you go back in the past, that was what the ideal was. And yet, we're now in a situation where we find ourselves seeing the military go down a very different path. It's a military that has been ordered by civilian officials to pursue political ideology, to pursue social experimentation, to be yet another institution in American life that gets infected with the woke mind virus. This is changing the character of the military, it's changing the culture of our services, and it's creating a situation in which great warriors have been driven away, and recruiting is at an all-time low post-abolition of the draft and the Vietnam conflict. There's reasons why that has been the case. If you look at the threats that this country has from China, for example, when China sees the Navy, for example, using drag queens to recruit people, they are laughing in our face. When you see some of the nonsense that's gone on in the services, these are things that would have been unthinkable even 10 years ago, much less in prior generations. Our enemies are whetting their appetite. You know why? Because they're seeing America take its eye off the ball. They're seeing America pursue other agendas at the expense of our nation's security agenda. So we need a military that is focused on being lethal, being ready, and being capable. And if there's anybody's agenda that gets in the way with that, that agenda needs to take a hike. And that's what we're going to do. So our mantra on January 20th, 2025 as Commander-in-Chief will be very simple. Mission first. Accomplish the mission. That has to be the sole focus of everything we do, and that's going to require us to go in and overhaul how the military has been running over these last few years. Yes, under Biden, but a lot of this started under Obama many years ago and has continued to progress very, very aggressively. So we're going to come in and we're going to take very swift action to right the ship, restore us to where we need to be. And you know what you'll see? You will see better retention and you will see better recruitment. People want to be a part of something that has meaning. If they wanted to be a part of some politicized institution, they can join almost anything in our society now. Half these companies are acting this way. You have bureaucracies, you have education institutions, all that stuff's happening. Is there going to be one spot in America where the merit is what matters, where accomplishing the mission above all else is what matters? And when you have an opportunity for that, young people will gravitate towards it. So we have a mission that we need to accomplish. We will get it done. So what are we going to do coming in as Commander-in-Chief? First, we're going to recognize that this military has made mistakes in recent years. And one of the biggest mistakes they made was driving out perfectly capable service members due to the COVID-19 vax mandate. That mandate was a mistake. That mandate was wrong. That mandate was not based on scientific data. military personnel who meet standards were probably at close to zero risk of significant COVID to begin with. Many of them had already had COVID and had natural immunity, but the mRNA shots were shown not to prevent the infection and transmission of COVID. So you have individuals that had already had it, they didn't want to take the shot, and then they're being forced to take something that they don't want to take or perhaps potentially lose their career. So that was wrong. That was an example of civilians and political people bowing to the hysteria in society at the time about COVID and trying to jam that down the throats of our military service members. We are going to acknowledge that the military made a mistake. We are going to offer service members who were separated their jobs back, including with back pay. And I think that that's an important thing to do. Second thing is, we're going to make it very clear, lethality, readiness, and capabilities must trump political agendas like the Green New Deal. You put security first. You don't tell folks, operators, contractors, that they have to be more concerned with reducing emissions than they do with military effectiveness. We don't need military vehicles that run on electric. We need military vehicles that are going to be dependable, and that are going to get the job done. The more and more you inject this type of political agenda into military, you are giving China a competitive advantage. Do you think China is forcing their military vehicles or other things to embrace things like electric? Of course not, because they know it's not capable. They will do it if they think it's the right thing to do, but they're doing a coal plant every week they're adding in China. I mean, they're humming and humming. They're going to use whatever they need to get a competitive advantage over the United States. So don't sacrifice mission accomplishment at the altar of the gods of the Green New Deal. That will be over on day one. Third, we need to end social experimentation and woke ideology in the military. And that involves doing things like eliminating the DEI bureaucracy from the Department of Defense. We've leaned in on this in Florida. We've actually eliminated DEI at our public universities. I think it's been harmful at universities because I think it's balkanized students and it's caused them to focus more on identity rather than merit and achievement. But I think it's much more detrimental when you're talking about a military context, because you, by definition, are sacrificing some of your individuality to be able to join, because it's what the unit needs that is most important. And so what DEI is telling people to do is to elevate our differences, elevate different ethnicities, gender, race, you name it, and balkanize people and put them into different groups. That's not good for society, but it's definitely not good for the military. So war fighting must trump identity politics. Spend more money on replenishing our ammo stocks than you do on DEI bureaucrats. Shift that money over. Come on, let's do it. We also have to ensure that there's good order and discipline on military installations. Having things like drag shows on military bases should not be allowed. We shouldn't even need to be having this discussion about some of these things. But I think it shows that people have lost their way. So we're not going to do that. We're also not going to do gender ideology and transgenderism in the military. It is just not appropriate to be injecting that into our armed forces. Right now, the military is using your tax dollars to pay for hormones and sex change operations for people in the military. Look, not my cup of tea. I don't think any tax dollars should ever go to that. Don't get me wrong. But how is that helping ensure a lethal fighting force, to be doing sex change operations in the military? And so it's wrong. And we need to focus on good order and discipline and focus on mission accomplishments. We also need to ensure that our service academies, Naval Academy, Air Force, West Point, that they are focusing on proper fields of study for military officers. We do not want to see these curriculums be taken over by things like critical race theory and gender ideology and all the things that have really co-opted modern academia. We need our service academies to stand apart from that. We need it to be different, and we need to make sure they're upholding martial values and martial education. And that's what we'll do, and we'll make sure we do that. Instead of DEI, what we should promote is merit, fairness, and equality. It focuses on achievement. It focuses on mission accomplishment, regardless of your race or ethnicity or any of that. That's what we're looking to do. And so we are going to uphold merit and achievement as the #1 focal point for military promotion and military readiness. And I don't think you can have a good military force if you do it any other way other than that. Clearly, it is not good for morale if somebody feels that they've been treated negatively based on, quote, white privilege or something like that. It's just toxic. So we're not going to do that. All those concepts, you know, if you want to talk about that stuff, go to Berkeley and go to a graduate seminar there. That's fine. But not in the military. We got to get it right. Fourth, we need to restore high military standards. You can't shirk on standards. There's got to be one standard to be able to participate in different endeavors. If you're going to be a Navy SEAL, you got to go through that training. And if you can't make it, then you're just not going to be able to do that. And that's true in aviation, it's true in infantry, it's true across the board. Don't water down the standards due to political or social reasons. That's not good for being a fighting force. And finally, we need to work hard to rejuvenate military recruitment. It's at a very significant low. Veterans frequently come up to me and they say, you know, I don't know that I'd want my kids or grandkids joining the military anymore. And that's something that's sad, because there's always been a sense of pride in families having their kids and grandkids join, especially if there was a family tradition. And I know a lot of families, in spite of all this, feel the call, and God bless them, I'm glad they still do. But we're losing out on some really, really talented people because of the emphasis on these tangential matters and a lack of focus on the mission. So when we restore that, we're also going to go out and really work hard on recruiting. It'll be something that I, as Commander-in-Chief, will use the bully pulpit for, to talk about the value of military service, the opportunities with military service, and of course we're going to look for ways that military families have more opportunities. In Florida, we do school choice for active duty military families, so they can go whatever school. That should be true nationwide. But you got to put emphasis on it, and we've got to view this as something that is honorable and meaningful. And I feel like the same people that are trying to impose their agenda on the military ultimately are many of the same people who look down on military service compared to doing other than things. Not me. I look up to you when you join the military, and that's true if you're a private, and that's true if you're a 4-star general. So we can get these recruiting numbers back up, and it's going to make a big, big difference. So. So I'm excited about the opportunity. I think we all know our country has been declining in recent years. We see it, we feel it, and unfortunately, not too many people are doing anything about it. Now, there's some people that say, you know, decline is inevitable. The best we can hope for is to just manage this decline a little bit better. I reject that. I think decline of this country is a choice. I think it's a choice that we make. I believe that success is attainable, and I'm running for president not to manage the decline. I'm running for president to reverse the decline of this country. And there will be no excuses on this. We will win the election, and we will deliver on our agenda. No excuses. I am going to get the job done. We are mission ready. Thank you all. We appreciate it. All right. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for taking my question, Governor DeSantis. There was breaking news. Former President Donald Trump said that he got a letter saying that he's the target of an investigation into efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Do you believe that Trump bears any responsibility for what happened on January 6th?
So I have not seen that. Someone had told me something coming in, and look, here's the thing. Criminal charges is not just because you may have done something wrong, it's did you behave criminally? And I think what we've seen in this country is an attempt to criminalize politics and to try to criminalize differences. So I don't know what was all about that, but I do know that we look at institutions, unfortunately, like our own FBI and Department of Justice, and we've seen the politicization of those institutions. We've seen them be weaponized against Americans. Pro-life activists can have the SWAT team come at them. Meanwhile, Hunter Biden, he would have been in jail if he were a Republican, and we all know that. So that's, I think, been a frustration to see how that is wielded. So I can't speak about that because I haven't seen it, but I can tell you one of my jobs as president will be to end the weaponization of these agencies, and I will get that job done. We will make it happen. Yes, sir.
So, Governor, the question is, what do you think it will take to win South Carolina, especially being that voters here in the previous election voted overwhelmingly for former President Donald Trump?
Oh, look, I mean, I think this is a great state. You talk about this issue. What state cares more about active duty military and veterans than South Carolina? I mean, there's maybe some up there. Florida's probably a competitor. We're proud of it. We're proud of our installations. We're proud of our active duty footprint. We're proud of our veterans every 2.5 years. Once you get Florida, you establish that Florida residency, and you usually never let it go because you're going to save money on income tax. They go from Pensacola to San Diego. Keep that Florida residence so you don't have to pay California income tax. It's very smart. So what ends up happening is people end up coming back and retiring in Florida, and it's a really, really good thing. So I think we're going to have a lot of synergy. I am the only candidate running who has actually served in our military, and that is a veteran of both parties on either side. And upon election, I'll be the first candidate elected who's actually served in a war since 1988. You know, it used to be that was like a standard thing with the commander-in-chief. So I think this is a personal issue for me in terms of veterans, in terms of active duty, in terms of recruiting, and I know it's a really big deal here for the people of South Carolina. I also think that you have a lot of folks in South Carolina who want to see results. They want to see you be able to stand up, hold your ground, and fight back against the people that are destroying this country. Nobody has done that more than me with what we've done in Florida since I've been governor. I mean, if you want to talk about woke, we've beat the woke in the schools and the corporations and the bureaucracy. All across the board, we fight and we win. And I think we're in a situation here where voters are sick of the excuses, they're sick of the sloganeering, and they want to see a president to go in there. You got to be disciplined, you got to be methodical, you got to be very focused on the job, but it's going to deliver all the things that we need to be delivered on. And that's the sense I get in South Carolina. I think it's going to be great. I think it's interesting how the schedule is working out, where you're going to see a lot of us, a lot of me at least, in South Carolina in February. So I got to figure out, maybe my wife and I we'll get a little sublease somewhere and bring the kids and just kind of enjoy. You know, my wife went to college at Charleston, so she's got roots in South Carolina. Her parents, so she was from Ohio. She went to college at Charleston on an equestrian scholarship, and her parents would visit her at college at Charleston, and they said, well, maybe we should live here instead of Ohio. And so they moved and kind of did that, and we've spent a lot of time here over the years. So I think it's a great state for us. And I can tell you, we've been going around. We were upstate last night. got this major crowd. There's a lot of energy here in South Carolina, so I think it's really, really good. Yes.
Thank you, Governor. 2 questions. First, you mentioned in your earlier answer, you talked about the criminalization of politics, but you also mentioned it wasn't about whether it's right or wrong. Do you think that former President Trump's actions were wrong on January 6th? And separately, do you think that gay and transgender people should serve openly in the military, on a separate topic?
Okay, so the second one, we said we're not going to do the transgender or the gender ideology, and that's a mission readiness. That had been the policy prior to Biden. He's changed it. He's included the sex change and all that. So we're going to go back to pre-Biden on the gender ideology for that. So look, there's a difference between being brought up on criminal charges and doing things. Like, for example, I think it was shown how he was in the White House and didn't do anything while things were going on. He should have come out more forcefully. Of course that. But to try to criminalize that, that's a different issue entirely. And I think that we want to be in a situation where, you don't have one side just constantly trying to put the other side in jail. And that, unfortunately, is what we're seeing now. So there's, again, someone had whispered this to me, so I'm sure I'll have a chance to look at this in the future, depending on the developments. But I of what I was going to do. Okay, well, thank you all. It's great to be here. God bless everyone, and let's get this military back to focusing on mission first. Thank you.